how did you see me growing up, or how like that's an interesting conversation.
Welcome to this episode of Dadnormous. I'm happy to be joined by my friend Matt Milone. Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This is great.
I appreciate you being here today. I know you're juggling a bunch of different things, not to mention your two daughters and the family down outside of DC. So why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself? And before I do that, just joining us, please feel free to subscribe down below, leave a comment, hit the like button, and I look forward to seeing you on future episodes. So Matt, why don't you take us a little bit into who you are as a dad today in 2020? We'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, fatherhood in the age of the pandemic has changed pretty much everything top to bottom for me, in terms of, being a dad, my relationship with my family, everything all at once. As you see, I'm in my basement right now working. So things have changed a little bit. But for the most part, I went from being a good, solid part-time dad to an okay full-time dad. And that's kind of what's going on now with my kids being home from school, summer camps being canceled, things like that. It's really falling on me because my wife works full-time from the home she always has. So nothing's much changed for her, but it's kind of fell on me to balance everything and be a little bit of everything now.
I bet everyone's juggling. It's a lot of new perspectives and new challenges and new opportunities too. And we'll get into that in just a second. So just remind me, how old are the girls now? You have two daughters?
Yes. So I have two girls, Ella and Gia. Ella is 10 and Gia is 6.
Wow. I literally remember when Ella was born. It's just a blink how fast it's going, how fast it flies.
It's a shame. It's beautiful, but it's a shame, right? Sometimes I wish she was like 2 years younger, and I wish Gia was 1 year older, but we're figuring it out.
It's going to happen soon enough that they're going to keep going. You'll look back on this time saying, wow, they were just 10 and amazing. So it's very interesting to take a moment. If I can ask you to go back about 11 years when your wife, Katie, and you first found out you were expecting. Can you take us back to that time and like where you were in life and where you were emotionally? Like, how did you feel when you first found out you were going to be a dad for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, just physically, we were living in New York City at the time. We were in an apartment on the Upper East Side. We just moved from Chelsea up there, so we had a little bit more space, but not nearly enough for a little girl coming in our lives. At the time, I was training with you for Ironman. Very active, traveling a lot. And then we found out that we were having a kid, and really quick we realized that everything was going to change really fast from where we were going to be living, the lifestyle that we were going to have to start living. So yeah, I mean, it was an interesting time, but we were overjoyed. I mean, we wanted to have a child. It's not something that was a surprise for us. We got married about 4 years earlier, so we had time to be husband and wife without having a kid around, so we got to enjoy one another quite a bit. So when it happened that we found out we were having a kid, we were ready to go. So yeah, we were pumped up. We were pretty excited about it.
That's awesome. And for you specifically as a dad, were you excited? Were you scared? Was it a combination of a lot of things? Like what was your first like visceral, like how did you feel about it at that moment?
No, like I was nervous. I think just like anyone is nervous to start a new chapter. Like at that time in my life, I knew that, life is growth, right? It's a constant state of growth. Some growth happens in little steps, and then some you just take a giant step, and who you were before is no longer the person you are now. I've always I've always looked out for those opportunities, right? Like those times where you could have massive change and look at things completely different from here on out. I knew that's what it was. So I was like, man, I'm actually a little excited about this because I'm ready for that next step. I was 30 years old when we found out that we were pregnant with Ella. So it made sense to the time I was at. I was lucky that way. I was lucky that the time that we were having the kid was the time that I was ready for one of those big momentous changes. And that it was like times it's like 100, right? Like it's crazy. So I don't think I was ready for what was going to happen, but I was expecting it. I was ready to roll.
As you said, are you ever totally ready for something like that? And
it's crazy, man.
If you could go back now to whisper in the ear of Matt circa 2010, and give him some advice as to what to expect or how to handle things over the next 10 years, what advice would you give yourself back then that you think you would have benefited from over the last 10 years of being a dad?
Yeah, I think I would have told myself to slow it down, and that's something I learned with my second daughter, but it wasn't with the first. Like, it's not, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a whirlwind. You don't have to be taking pictures of everything and always looking ahead and worrying about this and worrying about that. And I'm sure a lot of parents, moms and dads, think the same way. But for dads, it's a little different because we're not pregnant, right? Like, for women, they get a chance to grow the 9 months to having the kid. For us, one day I'm riding my bike in Central Park. The next morning, I have a baby. Like, there's no biological anything that's telling me it's coming. Get ready. Like, it doesn't exist. So for me, I remember we had Ella, and my buddy Ken came to visit the hospital. I was walking him home, and I just went, "Hey, Ken, what do you think about going for a ride in about 3 days? I'll meet you early in the park." And he was like, "Dude, what are you talking about? You're a dad." And I remember when he said that, it just flushed into me, and I said, "Oh my God, like, I got to be up for this." And then from that point on, I felt like it was a whirlwind of me catching up to the fact that I had a child. And then 3 years later, you're like, "Oh my God, this little girl is talking." I missed the baby phase. Now with the second one, I was able to enjoy it. But I think if you're a first-time dad, I think to prepare yourself as much as possible mentally for what's going to happen, and then slowing down once it happens will really get you in a place of acceptance, love. Like, it gets you there so much faster so you can enjoy it. I don't think I enjoyed it that much. I think
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and you have the kids in the age of, the real accelerating time of social media and Facebook, and everything was like just accelerating. So now that you have the girls and they're at that point where they're on the precipice of like this, jumping into this social media foray the next couple of years, what do you worry about when it comes to media and the girls and their, consumption and sharing, and what's in your mind? What's present for you now about that?
Yeah, I mean, unadulterated fear, right? Like, that it's a big fear, for a few reasons. But how I'm handling it is, number one, I'm trying to be a better example myself. I have a phone here. I'm on it all the time for work, right? So I'm always checking it. I'm always on it. They see that. I never take it. Any picture I post of them, I show them in the photo app, right? Not in the social media app. Them kind of gravitating, just because this is the world that we live in. They're asking me, "Hey, can I have a Facebook Messenger account to talk to my friend? Can I," they watch YouTube videos, which is bizarre to me, right? But then they'll make their own videos with their camera and say hi to their fans that don't exist. So, I mean, it's almost like the world is grooming them for something that I can't necessarily, I can't contain it. I can't control it. I can only control my example to them and what I put in front of them every day. And honestly, for right now, man, we have no plans to get them a Facebook account and Instagram and none of those things.
Yeah,
and YouTube, we do monitor that closely for sure.
I bet, and it's interesting too, because I know even like my daughter, who's 11 or 12 years older than your oldest, she just finished university, and when she moved into her first apartment, I said, cable, internet. She goes, "Dad, we don't do cable. We just need internet. Like, we don't have cable television. It just, we don't." She was like
That's wild.
She was amused by my nostalgia for cable television. So,
but I'll tell you, for all the dads out there, at my age, what I'm scared of the most is I feel like technology is leaving me behind a little bit. And I work in the tech industry. I feel like in a lot of ways, tech is leaving me behind. I'm not interested in knowing what TikTok is, right? I'm not downloading these apps. So, for me, I need to educate myself, but I got to know what it is. And this is for the future with my girl.
Yeah, it's a challenge. If you can imagine in 10 years, so it's 2030, happy 50th birthday. And so it's 2030, Ella's, 20 years old. She is, late teens, and they're watching this video of you talking about how it feels to be a dad now in 2020. What would you tell them about just how you feel, like how you feel as their father today?
Yeah, honestly, I feel awesome. I feel awesome right now today, to be honest with you, with these kids. I feel like a lot of dads say this, and when you wanted to do this, I didn't want to get real corny with it, but in reality, like, my two girls they're smart, They're compassionate, they're considerate kids. And like they all are, right? They're little, but they're creative. They want to know about things. They're always jumping into things that I'm doing and picking it up as an interest of their own. I don't know. I'm where I am right now, and I hope this doesn't change, but life happens. I'm extremely content with my relationship with them, and everything about who they are as people. I think right now, I think they got a great. I think they're on a great path to be good little human beings, whatever they decide to do, and that's up to them, right? And learning to go for it.
That's great. And if you can zoom out even farther and imagine your legacy as their dad, and imagine them in 20 years. Maybe Ella has a family of her own she started. What do you want your legacy to be as their dad? How do you want them to talk about, like, Grandpa Matt? Like, how do you want them to remember these times and then zoom out to 20 years and talk about you as their dad kind of in a broad perspective when they're 30 and late 20s?
That's a great question. I mean, because at the end of the day, they are my legacy, right? They're the only people in my life who will carry the memory of me forward. They see me at my best. They see me at my worst. They see me at a time in my life where I could still run and play and have fun and joke around. I have energy to do things with them. I think for me, I would like them to think of me the way I think of men in my life, right? I remember them always being kind and patient. I remember them always having respect for people and things around me. I remember them also never really taking any shit, or I don't know if I could say that on here, but I also remember them, just being being somebody in their lives who's a source of a lot of strength, but also a source of a lot of compassion and to do in their life. I want them to say, my dad always supported me. He was always so proud of me what I did, whatever you want to do. And he always saw things through. He never left me out to dry. He never let me hang out to dry.
That's great. And if you could go back and take a mulligan in the last 10 years about something that not necessarily you did wrong, but if you could, like, tweak it a little bit, maybe do something a little differently, is there something that jumps out at you in the past 10 years that you would handle differently?
We moved around a lot. I know that for my oldest daughter, I think that was a little tough on her because she did make a lot of really great friends in Chicago where we live. So for your listeners, we moved from New York to Chicago and then Chicago here to the DC area. I don't know if I would necessarily take it back.
Sure.
Because I think it was a great experience for them to have. And I think that's a skill that you need to have in life, right? Like, sometimes things do change. Change does happen and moves happen, but sometimes when she does remember her friends there, she gets a little sad and it makes me feel a little bad. But yeah, I think I would have moved out of New York a little bit sooner than we did. I mean, I'm sure they'll let me know when they get a little bit older, right?
I'm certain of it. I'm certain of it. And if you think about your dad and growing up, is there something particular that you reflect on often about how you were raised that you are either employing and, like, really carrying that into your parenting and your being a dad, or that you've kind of modulated that a bit and tweaked it a bit to how you're a dad today, how you show up to your girls?
Yeah, I mean, see, my dad was a really good man, and in every way, he just, you know what I mean? The man is a solid, dependable, respectful, just beautiful human being, right? Like that is whatever I did. A lot of times, I guess, I don't think my dad was that into everything that I was into, but he definitely loved that I was doing it. And he always jumped in whenever he could. If I was in Boy Scouts, he was a Boy Scout leader. I swam my entire life. He was at every single meet, drove me to practices. So a combination of that, and also, my mother just constantly stoking creativity, knowing that it was so important. If I showed interest in anything, she knew to just run with it until the wheels fell off. And that's something that I've taken with me my entire life. And even my girls, I do the same thing with them. If there's an interest, I stoke that fire until they decide maybe it's time to move on, or if they want to stick with it, we really burn it down. So beautiful lessons from my childhood, man.
Yeah, that's great. So if you could reflect and share some thoughts one of the goals for this channel is to be a resource for dads of all walks of life and all stages of their own lives and the lives of their kids. If you could reflect so far on being a dad, what's really present for you? What would you like to share about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is something you hear a lot, and it's to be present. But that means a lot of different things for a lot of different people, based on how you are in your own daily life, right? On how is your short-term memory with things? Do you remember this or that? See, for me, I love photography because I don't have really good memories. So I take pictures. I take a lot of pictures of these kids, and we started collecting old film cameras where we practiced on one another, and we learned that. So I just think to be present in the moment, to be compassionate to your child, putting yourself in their shoes, remembering when you were a child, how you internalized things, how you took information in. My whole life, I've been going against this stream. I want my kids to have that same thing. I want them to do shit knowing it's not going to work. I don't know. I think that's the most important thing. It's the most important thing.
One of the biggest detriments, I think, to kids and to society is this weird, almost subconscious pull to conform. And,
Fuck yes.
And I think that when my kids want to try something out of the box, I always push them to think that way, because I think you can always following the rules and following along. It's a well-worn path for a reason. So if you're going to try to expand and try something new and bounce against the edges of things and fail, I think those lessons, and this is why I say this all the time as well, my biggest failures have led directly to my biggest successes. So, and it's loopy and crazy, but I can see a very simple cause and effect to what I learned from my failures and what I'm trying to achieve as I go forward. Well, there's more failures along the way, of course, but I love.
How do you show your kids that? Like we talked about social media, right? Social media is just a group of people just trying to conform, not only trying to conform, trying to perfect the art of conforming, right? So how do you do that? How do you show them that, hey, you got to go this way, not this way? How do you do that in a meaningful way?
I think that's a good question. I think it's just being authentic, and saying, I don't know. I mean, I say this all the time to my clients. The most powerful leadership words I've ever heard spoken, and it's just forever true, is I don't know. So if you don't know something, just own that you don't know it. You'll find out. I'll look into it. I'll get back to you and follow up and be true to that statement, but not pretending to be omnipotent, not pretending to have this universality of knowledge. When someone presents a question, like let's be real, like right now, timely. No one, even if you had a briefing, could ever have predicted what's happening in the world would have happened.
Yeah.
So I think for me, for you, for leaders, to say, you know what, I don't know. We didn't expect this magnitude, but now that we saw it, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Right? That makes sense.
Exactly.
Let's try. Yeah. Let's take action. Right. So I say all the time, I have these 7 checkpoints I always steer people through: positivity, authenticity, courage, action, joy, gratitude, and resilience. So I think that it's a great way of looking at the world and activity, because action's in there, because you could be authentic, you could have positivity, you could have courage, but if you don't take action, then it means nothing. It's just this exists in your brain. So I think that trying and failing, I'm dancing around your answer. I don't know, man. I think it's just a matter of being authentic. I think, authentic when you fail, authentic when you succeed, authentic that you're upset. I have friends who've gone through major changes and they're saying, I'm just trying to hold it together so my kids don't see me upset. I'm like, well, they should see you upset. This is an upsetting thing. And if you don't show them you're upset, what you're modeling to them is when the things are terrible and bad, they should just push it all down and not experience it. So see emotions as energy in motion, feel them, experience them, learn from them, and then let it go. Like we have this disease when we hang on to emotions, good and bad. We either like hang on to the one thing positive from the past and ignore the present, or we hang on to one thing negative from the past and we lose sight of what's potential for reality is today. So I think just being real, and it's tough because your kids are young. You don't want to scare them. you have to find that balance between like, this is, not everyone's a good person. Like those conversations are rough.
We had a hard time with the Black Lives Matter. Like, do I tell my 10-year-old about this? She has friends that are very mature. She's just not there. Like, she's still a kid, right? So it's like, man, I don't want to do this. So when we're walking, she's like, what is that sign? I explained to her the sign to,
right.
Like, it's that fun. Like, I don't want to
modulate.
Back.
You have to modulate it constantly. And you have Gia too, who's a couple years behind. So it's like, how do you speak to and meet them where they are is super challenging. And it's not getting easier. I mean, listen, when Ella's 16 and Gia's, an early teen, it's a whole other set of challenges. And it's a whole other set of like, why is Gia doing this? Or like, and then what's okay for one, not okay for the other. How do they meet adolescence and their teenage years and grow? And listen, I hope that the world doesn't get more challenging than it is today. I'm not terribly confident. And, and in the mix of it, we have this reality of our own fatherhood and our own experiences in our life. You with Katie, and you with work, and you with your family, and you in society. And like all of these inform, we can say all the things we want, but our kids are going to watch. That's how they're going to learn. So you and your fishing trips and all the things that you do to be active and be in the world and experience the world, like that's an amazing lesson to share with your girls, because they know like dad works hard. Dad has time he prioritizes with the family, with his wife, and for himself and with his friends. And like that's the best you can be. You're not tilted in one direction. You're trying to be well-rounded. And again, that experience informs the girls' reality as to how they are going to live their lives. So that's the answer, right? Being real and really embracing all you can in life, to not only for your own happiness, because it's a key part, and also to inform the girls as to how they can be, what the opportunities are for them. Because the flip side of the concern with social media is the fact that we have this limitlessness. You can get a 12-year-old in DC, have a curious question and put a question out to Reddit, and find someone in Bangladesh who has like an exchange, and while we're afraid sometimes of nefarious people in these media, it's also this wonderful opportunity to like really open the world. And not too secondary, a goal I have for this channel, frankly, is just opening up the fact that we have this universality to being a dad around the world, and the context and the nuances may be different, the locations may be different, the languages may be different, but the experiences are largely the same, and we can learn from one another everywhere. So that's part of what I really love about these conversations, is that there's definitely touch points that are similar, and there's always a perspective that's unique to each person and how we show up as dads, because they experience us in very different ways. So it's
you have a conversation with your kids about this?
I don't pretend to be infallible. Like, I've made mistakes. I'm sure at the moment I'm probably making a couple too, and I'm sure I'll make some. And I think part of it is I try to be real and experience life the way that I think I want it to be, and do the things that I feel are important for me as their dad, to show them what's possible. And just in society, to be a good human being. Like, I've made my mistakes. I've gotten, dinged hard for the mistakes I've made. And you have, in my opinion, you have no choice but to go forward and to, redefine who you are past mistakes that you've made, and you're trying to find new ways to show up and be effective as a dad. And who you are as a dad to Ella and Gia now is going to be obviously totally ineffective in a couple of years. You're going to have to adapt and change and morph into this teenage girl dad, which is a hell of a place to be, I can promise you.
Dude, I don't know, man. I just look at your daughter, how she grew up. I feel like she grew up so fast. She was a child 1 month, and she was a woman.
Oh, it's a whole bunch
in 6 months. You know what I mean?
We were in Greece, and she was like, it's so beautiful. And she's looking at the sea on the beach. We're walking on the beach, she and I. And she's looking at the sea, and I'm looking at the guys as I'm walking by, and they're looking at her, and they're catching me and looking away.
Dude, but this is like real life, man. Like, this is cool.
I think that by owning our flaws, we help our kids embrace their confidence. As weird as that may sound initially.
No, I understand. I know exactly what you mean. I love the idea of being fallible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's what makes me who I am. You know, I think that a
Yeah.
bigger part of me is what I'm fucking up than what I'm doing right, you know?
Totally. And I think it's also like saying yes to things. I don't subscribe to the fact that I need to conform to what they imagine a dad to be. I think being fully participatory in life is one of the greatest gifts we can give to our kids, and not waiting around for things to happen. And again, fallibility is a gift. I think, you know, because I go back to the quote by Teddy Roosevelt, which I love. It's been like my life-defining quote since I first heard it. It's the man in the arena quote. And you've probably heard it before. And it's like, basically it says, it's not the critic who counts, the man who points out where the strong man stumbles or the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who's in the arena. And it goes on to say, like, if he succeeds and he knows the triumph of high achievement, and if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. And this, to me, is the critical component, the last sentence. So that this place shall never be with those cold and timid souls that knew neither victory nor defeat, because they didn't do anything. So, like, I want to be in, you know, and my kids know me as that. They, like, you know, it's showing the kids, like, as they grow up consuming media. So when I first took them to the Middle East, the first half a day, they were like freaked out, and then they were fine. Then I think they were watching someone in like very traditional, like, you know, a tourist in Dubai was very, very covered. And she was like losing her mind at her like 4-year-old in McDonald's. And my kids just found that so amazing. And they're like, everyone's the same. I'm like, yeah, everyone's the same. That's like the best lesson you could ever learn. Like, you know, the universality of the human spirit and of parenting and of, you know, there's nuances that are varied, but, you know, I think this woman losing it, our kids in Arabic, you know, at McDonald's in Dubai, like my kids thought that was amazing. They talk about it all the time. You know, like, when did you first realize it? And they were like, yeah, McDonald's in Dubai.
Hey man, that's true though. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
It's crazy to be compassionate with them. They're just little people who are learning how to be little people. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. And if you do it right, they will take the guidance, right? They will listen to you, because at the end of the day, we're one of their heroes. We're one of the few people that they even know in their lives. So I can dig it.
Good. I'm happy. I'm happy for you. And I'm really excited for the journey that you're on. I love following along because you and Katie and the girls are certainly active and out and about in the world and experiencing a lot of life. And I wish you continued and growing enjoyment of that as you go into your second decade as a father.
Yeah, man. It's a trip. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
And for those of you that are new, again, please subscribe. I'll put some links to new videos around here, and I look forward to seeing you on a future episode. Thanks a lot.